Laugh at the cringe, learn from the crumble. This is Cringe and Crumble. So we live in a dating culture where people will sleep together, text all day, share personal stories, and still somehow never say what this actually is, or even what they actually want. So today, we're actually going to talk about sex shame and mixed signals, and why so many adults still struggle to communicate honestly around intimacy. So welcome back to Cringe and Crumble. I'm your host, Tranisha, and in this episode, it is for anyone who's ever found themselves ever wondering, are we actually connecting or are we actually avoiding real communication through physical intimacy? Am I actually comfortable or am I just people pleasing? Are they into me or do they just like access to me? That's a big one. So I actually want to bring in someone who could help us go deeper than surface level dating advice, because this conversation touches on desire, shame, and boundaries, and even a little bit of attachment and communication issues around the stories that we tell ourselves about sex. So today I am joined by Dr. Todd Giardina, who is a psychologist who works in relationships and women's issues. And he's also the host of the Therapy Without the Couch, where he explores love, sex, relationships, and mental health. But before we move on, I would like for Dr. G to actually introduce himself a lot better than I've done and tell us a little bit more about his work that he's done. And I'm sure I've only scratched the surface. So welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much, Tranisha. Yeah, Dr. Giardina here. I'm a psychologist. I'm in private practice in Coral Gables in Miami, Florida. I trained as a health psychologist, and that's what I thought I would be doing my whole career. But in private practice, it seems everybody wants to talk about love, sex, and relationships. And so that's what I've pivoted into. And I end up talking to women and couples, serving as often with heterosexual couples. I call it that I'm the translator. I help men understand women and women understand men. And we're going to get into sex today. And that's so much one of the difficulties, that men and women really do operate differently from a social and biological standpoint. We just don't want to accept that. And that's often where the mismatch comes in, the confusion. So we'll touch on that. But this is what I talk about all day.
Well, now we're going to jump into it, because first, let's talk about why sex is easier to do than to talk about. Because for a lot of people, sex feels easier than talking about sex, because usually, even though it's not simple, it's because honesty always feels a little bit riskier, correct? Because the second you start to have those conversations about what you want, what you're expecting, you start to feel like your vulnerability is going to lead to rejection or even being judged by the other person. So instead of you trying to be honest with that person, what you're actually doing is trying to pretend that everything is chill and you're cool and you're just here for the vibes, when in actuality, there's more that's deeper than what you really want out of this relationship through this intimacy part. So my question for you, Dr. G, is why is it often easier for people to have sex than to talk honestly about sex?
Well, I think one thing was you're answering your own question in the way you ask in that question, that I think there's more risk of rejection. If we're in the middle of some kind of physical act, there can be rejection. Your hands go here, their hands go there, and you can kind of gently nudge somebody away. But it's very different for me to look you in the eye and say, I want this done to me or with you. And there's very much a binary yes or no. It feels like I am going to be, simply put, judged. I think people are afraid that their interests are either too vanilla or too kinky, that their go, no-go zones are not going to line up with somebody else's and it's going to be a turnoff. And so there's just this fear because it's such an intimate thing. And we don't talk, even though we are a overly sexualized culture, and you can find, more for women's case, but you can find nudity or sexuality everywhere in advertising and media. We don't talk about it. And that's media's representation, so nobody knows what's real. That's a whole other soapbox I'm not even going to get on, but the porn industry has very much confused people as to what they think the norms are. Now, a lot of people think porn is real, and that's acting. Like, Tom Holland's not Spider-Man, and that guy and girl doing porn, they're not really in a couple. So but there's, I think, a lot of confusion there that I need to either follow the porn model, and if I don't, then there's something wrong with me. But we don't actually know what normal people having sex is like. And so we're worried that my thing is bad or wrong or shameful. So I don't want to tell you. Let's just sneak around it, and maybe we can vibe it out along the way instead of actually saying it and getting a yes or no.
Oh, that's so true. And I hate that feeling. And I hate you're so right, how like society has us thinking about sex, right? Because you think like, oh, in a porno, this is what they do. There's really no conversation. You get straight to it. That's how a relationship is built. That is not real life because there's so many different layers that go into this besides just being intimate with someone because
Mhm.
there's those emotions that we have behind it. So my next question for you is, how does that shame show up in modern dating and sexual dynamics?
Well, I think it's pressure, often more on the woman's part. It's terrifying the things I learned because my daughter's not old enough to date or have sex yet, but I'm worried what she's stepping into. I had a young
Mhm.
patient in her early to mid 20s tell me that the expectation, as she understands it, as a girl in her 20s, is that if you go on one date with a boy, he should get a blowjob minimum by the end of the night. That is the standard. Where I left off a million years ago in the Stone Age, you would try to kiss goodnight, maybe some kind of open mouth tongue kiss to see if there was vibes, but she must deliver him a blowjob lest a second date is not going to happen. And I don't know who set this standard. I have a strong guess. I think it's men, but like that's so then what do you do? What if you're not into this guy, but you're what's the move? What if you don't feel connection? And also, a blowjob is not very intimate for the female. You're not getting a hell of you're
No.
kind of performing. What about you? I asked her that. I said, "Well, does it are we both giving each other head? Is that?" And she's like, "No, no, no. That's not. It's just So
Yeah,
yeah.
that's
I
I
think
never heard that.
and this is also where I get into a very maybe controversial messaging to some of my folks dating that we've kind of swung back around. I think now there's this expectation, at least in Miami, that the guy should pay on the date, that he should treat you. And I mean, listen, within reason, I think that sounds nice, but I think that
Mhm,
creates a false assumption that, well, if I bought you dinner and drinks, then
mhm.
you owe me some recompense. And I don't like the optics of that.
Transactional,
Yeah, it doesn't feel chivalrous. It
you
feels
know?
like you got yours, now I get mine. You owe me.
And that's not the way it should be. Whatever happened to the bases? You got first base, second base, third base, maybe a home run.
Yes.
We don't have bases anymore. We just took baseball out and we just went straight into the end zone. Like I don't.
This is my
This is
frustration. Yeah,
this is
bases.
so.
Because that's
Yeah,
what we do when we meet people. If
yeah,
if we're meeting in person, I'm going to tell you my name. We'll shake hands, but we have to shake hands before I give you a little polite kiss on the cheek or a hug before we engage in nude interactions. If I
yeah,
walked up to a stranger, if I met Tranisha and said, "Hi, nice to meet you. Let's take our clothes off," that's very inappropriate. So
yeah.
just because we're in a dating environment, why does that suddenly become appropriate? You have to ease into, and this is where intimacy becomes something that, back to your original question, I think whether it's physical or emotional intimacy, we're all trying to rush. Everybody wants
Hmm.
to get there quickly, and nobody has patience. And stereotypically, you have women wanting emotional intimacy and commitment, and men wanting sexual intimacy and physical intimacy, and everybody wants to do it right out of the gate. Because I have, just from the opposite, I have women who on a first date are asking questions like, so are we monogamous now? Or, have you cheated on your exes? That's a wild first date ask. So on
That
both
really
ends.
is. It really is. And that was what brings me to my next question about how does people pleasing affect consent, pacing, and communication? Because,
Hmm.
like you said, they're coming out the gate full force, wanting to do all these different things. And it's like, no, why is everyone? So then that brings me to another question as to why do you feel that everyone feels like they're in a rush? Like, what are we trying to do here? Like, what does society put on this? Not even new generation, just people in general, that they feel like things can be done in a certain time period that they feel like if I don't do it, I won't be respected. Like what's happening?
We're in an immediacy culture. I mean, right now, I can pick up this $1,000 device and instantly talk to a person across the world or purchase a product or have food delivered. And so it's partly that. I think
Um,
I blame the apps because now it's seen as a shortcut. I would have to go to a place, meet Tranisha, introduce myself, maybe talk about could we go to a second location and speak more privately. Hey, I would like to take you on a date next Saturday. But now I can swipe while I'm laying in bed watching TV, and now we accelerated. We skipped that part. That awkward. A lot of people like that. They think it's awkward meeting people, and I agree. It's hard to go up to somebody and cold
mhm.
ask, "Hi, can I speak to you?" But now I think people feel like, oh, we already did the first bit. Now we can get to the next bit.
But
And
the
then
thing is, we
lastly, I
didn't
blink.
do the first bit.
Well, you didn't, but there's the illusion of it because I saw your bio. I already know what your religion is or how many cats you have or whatever. We already did all that. Like we can just get to and
Let's get
it's
to
a
the prize.
false, but it's a false sense of intimacy. I feel just
Mhm.
like I'm guilty of it. I know you are. There's some person you follow on Instagram, whether they're a celebrity or just a person in your that you feel like you know them, but you've never met them. But we have
Very
this
true.
peek into someone's life. Like I know that Ariana Grande has a tattoo on her hand. Why would I know? I know that what's her name? Zendaya just got married. Like I don't know Zendaya, but I know about her marital status, and I feel like I've been on the
Mhm.
journey with her and Tom. No, so I think we've gotten it's immediacy culture, but it's also the feeling like we know people, but you don't.
Mhm.
So you've had this sense of intimacy because you got a peek into my life, but it wasn't bilateral and it's superficial. You don't really know me. You know what I posted.
Mhm. You know that false sense of me, because you always put our best foot forward, right?
Also that. And when you see somebody post, they're like crying, real, raw. Girl, why'd you put on eyeshadow before you start crying? Like that's staged.
And that's very much staged.
But then lastly, the other thing I'm seeing with the intimacy and the acceleration, I think, is now we have people who are trying to have it all, and more
Mm.
so than previous generations. So everything's got like its kind of chunk of time. So now, okay,
Mhm.
I've finished my degree, I've built my career, I've gone to Bali and done yoga. Now I'm ready to be married. Go. And so like this is the 2 years when I'm going to meet my partner and get married. And you haven't been gently easing into it. We used to meet our partners because I got to know you. We kept bumping into each other, and I saw you at the house party. Then I saw you over there at the park. Then I realized you
Mhm.
work in my building. And you ease in. But that's a long takeoff. That's a long runway. And people are just like, no, that doesn't fit my timeline. I need to be married by next Tuesday.
That's so true. It's like, yeah, no, this is not it. Like, literally, it's like a schedule. It's like your work schedule, right?
Uh huh.
I have at 9 a.m., we need to be doing this by the next XYZ date. Like, people are forgetting that. It's insane. But I love your take on this because it's so true. And people need to hear this. So then that brings us to my next question is, can someone genuinely want intimacy and still avoid clarity?
Ask that differently. I'm not sure I'm understanding what you're going for.
So let's
What would you
say,
like to know?
so basically, if the person like, I want to be intimate with you, but I really don't care about they care about the clarity part, but they don't really care about the clarity part
Mm.
because they really just have the physical part, but I guess in a sense, they're hoping that clarity may come way in the future, right? So they're trying to avoid that and just be like, like I'm here for the vibes.
Well, and what I think happens there, so to answer your question, maybe. Because there's two kinds
Okay.
of clarity we might be speaking of. First off is the what are we literally going to do physically to one another in the bedroom? And then secondly is the clarity of
Oh,
what's our phase of our relationship and what does this represent? And I think both require some clarity. So I want couples or of any status, part of the foreplay is talking about, so what do you like? Like what turns you on? That's kind of a little sexy and if like talking about it makes you want to do it, but it feels vulnerable. So at the very minimum, you need to talk about what are my no-goes? What are my no-no
yes.
zones? What act I will not engage in? And that can feel off-putting, but I don't feel safe. I can't fully jump in if I worry at any minute this thing's about to happen or you're about to touch me there or use this word. So we don't need to get all into my kinks and my likes and my wishes
Yeah.
and my desires because that
Okay.
maybe feels too intimate. But we got to start with, hey, I don't do X on the first date, or you can't touch me Y, or we can't involve Z, just because now I can feel relaxed. And then
Mhm.
simultaneously, some people, and this is where stereotypes come in, but men need in sexual, physical intimacy to feel emotional intimacy. The joke is he
Mhm.
rolls off of you and goes, "Oh my God, I love you." And he doesn't really mean I love you, but he feels connected to you. And then vice versa, many women, modern women say they don't, but I think it's a little bit of self-gaslighting. Like I feel more comfortable being physically intimate if I know that we have emotional intimacy or commitment at the very minimum. I know that you're not running around with 3 other women and I'm getting sloppy thirds. So at the very
Yeah.
least, some sort of maybe you're not promising marriage, but
Yeah.
I don't want to know that you're bringing STIs into my nether regions. So,
Very true. And it's interesting too, because you said this before, like what you just mentioned about women and men and emotional intimacy. Because really when intimacy actually enters the picture without enough clarity, what usually happens is people start thinking they're closer to each
mhm,
other than they really are. Because sex can create that feeling of closeness that isn't always the same as clarity, but what they usually do is that it's where those things get really confusing and once physical intimacy enters the picture, it's easy for projection to kick in, right? You start
Mm-hmm.
fantasizing about your future. You started having, even your attachment starts to get activated, right? Because we're physical. So now I feel like you have entered into my space. And
Mm-hmm.
then you start thinking that this connection is going to go deeper and you feel more secure because you've had this. But what a lot of people I feel like fail to realize is that, and what they're telling themselves is that we're close because we're physical, even when exclusivity and emotional depth and real intention has never been talked about.
Mm-hmm.
And so this is my question to you is like, why does sex sometimes make people feel more bonded together than the relationship actually is?
Well, and I think it is. It's a step. And once upon a time, we did have the bases. And so it meant more to go, to third base or hit a home run. But I think it's also, I mean, there are chemicals released. There is a degree of bonding that happens. It's an intimate act that we don't do with everybody. So, I
No.
mean, even with my long-term couples, I tell them, you have to have sex because otherwise what distinguishes you guys from roommates or coworkers? That's the special distinction. That's the special sauce. Because otherwise we can have trust and connection and we're friends or roommates or coworkers. We can have a shared life and we're roommates. Like the sex is what makes us romantically entwined. Now, little caveat, little asterisk here. It's important that people define sex because this is where people will say, well, we haven't had sex. And they're speaking about penetrative heterosexual intercourse. But I would argue that if you're in a committed relationship and somebody gives or receives a hand job, that was not penetrative intercourse, but you're going to feel like somebody did something sexual that was inappropriate. So it's weird where people don't clearly define, what do you mean sex? And so I define it as an intimate touch that you wouldn't do with somebody else. Somebody years ago, when we were talking about Me Too, came up with what they called the Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson test. Would you go up to The Rock and touch him that way? If you wouldn't, then,
No.
I mean, depending on your sexuality, if you're a gay man who's attracted to The Rock, then you should, but like that becomes the question, right? And so what I tell my couples is they're like, oh, we haven't had sex in forever. I said, if I sat between you right now and I took my hand and I put it above each of your knee on your upper thigh, how would you feel? We didn't have sex, but you'd feel really inappropriate, uncomfortable. That is an intimate area of touch. So even just cuddling on the couch and having your hand between your partner's thighs, like snuggling, or having a hand kind of up in somebody's shirt, like that's showering together. I ain't showering with my coworkers. Showering isn't sex, but is it? It is a sexual intimacy act. Does that make sense, right? So I think that's where
sense.
a lot of this gets also complicated. But back to the original point, yeah, I think people get confused because it does feel like we accelerated things, which is also why I see people, whether it's sex early on or trauma dumping. Just because I told you this you can't skip the steps. I have this long speech that I give people about intimacy, whether it's emotional or physical, and that they're almost time release locks on the levels. So even if you try to cut to the middle with sex, okay, but we have to know each other X amount of time before I can feel like it truly is, before I would like you to say that we are in love. People say, I'm in love. I'm like, how long you known him? 3 weeks. You're not in love. That's lust, it's excitement. Like, you don't know anything. You don't know this person's middle name. You don't, there's stuff that just takes time. You can't rush it.
And this brings us to my next question, which is, can chemistry create that false sense of emotional safety? Because it feels like that person thinks their chemistry is, oh my God, it's amazing, this is love, when it really isn't.
And maybe you might even, and I used my word wrong, you might be in love, but is it love? Because to me, in love has a little element of like lust and chemistry, and that can come and go through a relationship. But love to me is more about trust. That's where I can have non-romantic platonic love with people because I trust you, or I care about you. But that can only come with time. And you can't hurry that because you have to pass certain tests. We need to, how do we treat each other when we're drunk? Or do we drink too much? Or how do you handle when we have a fight? Or what happens if we miss a flight? How do you react? How do you treat wait staff? How do you treat dogs and kids? Like there's certain kind of tests, if you will. Now, saying this, I promise you there's a listener who's like, okay, got it. Check. So in the first week, I need to go and make sure he pets a dog and he talks to a kid. you can't hurry it.
Okay, go on a trip together immediately.
It's kind of performative at that point. It's still, nobody's really gotten real. But
No.
chemistry is real. Like, I truly believe chemistry is real. And people talk about they met their soulmate or I felt like an immediate connection. Yes. And that might make you want to sleep with them, which also makes you feel more connected. Great. But you still don't know this person. You don't know their routines, their habits, their patterns, do they crash out every fall when seasonal affective disorder? Like, do they handle stress badly when April 15th comes? You don't know.
Yeah, that's very true. And what would you say to a listener? I'm sure they're probably listening right now, like, so there has to be a timeline. So if it can't be rushed within like three weeks or 4 weeks, should I give them a year or should I do this? Or would you just say, just let it naturally take its course?
Exactly. Yeah. I hate prescriptive things. People
Mhm.
like the only prescriptive thing I put out there is if somebody just divorced, they need a year to recover before they're ready for a serious relationship. That's
I
my
think that's
only
true.
thing I've made up that I stand by. That, oh, well, he or she got divorced, but they were basically living apart, but they've only been divorced officially 6 weeks. I'm like, they ain't ready. They got to be single. But
Mhm.
love, I don't know, because I don't know. For instance, I had a case where somebody got married and the family felt like it was accelerated. But this person was older. They had already known the individual they were marrying. They just came back into their sphere. There was certain history there. So it felt a little more okay to accelerate because there were other extenuating circumstances, right?
And it's kind of like a full
just,
circle.
right. Maybe we went on our first date on January 2nd. But if we've been coworkers since 2016, dude, that changes my criteria. Like, we have developed something. So you're further along the timeline than you realize, even if we didn't get romantic until, and that's the dream for me, for all my patients to, like, I want you to have a meet cute with a coworker or a secondary friend. This is what Hinge was originally supposed to be. Hinge was supposed to be the app version. So picture a Hinge and it goes like this. And so here's Tranisha and here's Todd. And in the middle, there's this person who connects us. And so if we both have the same friend, we'd probably get along. We might have similar. So they're our Hinge. And that's how you used to meet people. Hey, you're going to Johnny's party. So am I. And we both know Johnny. And so we must have similar values to Johnny. And that means we must have similar values to each other. So we might be a good match.
Hinge definitely isn't that way
It ain't
anymore.
that no more.
I don't even know what Hinge is. It's a dumpster fire. Amy, roses have been shot out. You got to wait. I don't know. It's a lot of things that's happening there. It has strayed away from its core purpose. I can tell you that
original,
much.
Yeah.
The original roots. Well, I have another question for you, though.
Yes.
How do you know when sex is building real intimacy now and when it's distracting from what hasn't been communicated? So basically, someone's using the sex as like how like, not say like a shut up ring, but it's something where it's like, oh, are we together? Are we not together? So it's like, oh, instead of having that real conversation, let's just be intimate and people continue to think that.
And the really hard thing there is it's two people are in the same room doing the same thing, but they're having very different experiences. So one of you thinks this means something and the other one thinks it's just So there's implications, there's assumptions, there's expectations. It's fueled by your set point, your body count, your experience in relationships. You're like,
body count.
So many factors there. And this is where people get upset because one person's like, but we did that very intimate act. And the other one's like, yeah, I do that with everybody every Tuesday. Like, that didn't mean something special. And I've even seen the reverse. I have seen where women are frustrated that he's catching feelings and maybe he's just caught some lust and he wants to get more of that physical again. But now he took that seriously and she's like, I just needed to get off. Like, it's been a minute. It's not, you weren't special. You were okay. So the gender stereotype doesn't always hold true.
No, and also I think I've had an episode about this where communication is really key, though. If it's something that you don't really want and you're out here and you just want to be there intimate with someone, don't go on these dating apps and then you're swiping and you connect with these people that really want real relationships and you read that in their profile and you're like, yeah, that's cool, whatever, but you don't really want it. You just there for the intimate part. Is that it's just not, it's not nice and it's not fulfilling what that other person wants, which kind of traumatizes them because it's like every time I go out with someone, they're not really communicating what they want from me. And then also, I don't know, I feel like that person will get their karma.
And you hope that there's karma, but it's also people have learned how to play the game that stereotypically in a heterosexual relationship, most women are trying to date to mate. Most guys are just trying to get some. And so guys know if they just say, yeah, I'm just here for a good time, not a long time, then she's going to get up and leave the table. And so I have to do the dance and say the thing and and now I got some and now that worked. Being transparent rarely works. But that's what Tinder was supposed to be. Tinder was supposed to be the straight version of Grindr where we can just be straight up, just like hook up, cool. All right, no strings, cool. And listen, if something flourishes, neat. But everybody knew what we were here for. And now Tinder's even turned into a dating app.
I didn't know that was the initial concept either. I thought it was meant to be a dating app, not like the straight version of Grindr. So now I guess it kind of is reverting back to what it is now because people say they can't find anyone of, I'm going to say value, but of no relationship. It's more of like, let's get together, we're going to bang, and we're going to move on. And so maybe it has made a full circle back to what it needs to be, what it wanted to be, I guess.
To one of your previous questions, I think people are scared of being emotionally vulnerable. And that cuts across sexual identity and gender identity, and everybody's scared of getting their heart broken or being rejected. Yeah. So now everybody's playing with walls up and everybody's acting like they don't care and it's cool and it's just vibes because like most of these people do care, but they're afraid to be the one who cares more. I'm afraid to put myself out there and be rejected. So I'm just going to act like, whatever, no, it's cool. And you're crying and they're crying, but nobody wanted to say anything because I don't want to, you didn't hurt me. It's no big deal. Didn't hurt me. But it did by the way you're acting. It did. So everybody's just scared.
Everyone is scared. And we'll get to this later on in the episode because I was going to be like, so how does someone, how do you communicate that? Like, who's going to put on the big girl panties, big boy panties and be like, this is how I feel about this. How do you feel about this? And how do you break that cycle of just, I'm going to keep the vibes. It's going to be the vibes. And
I wish we could all just agree to be polite. That's what it is. I think men have developed stereotypes about women and dating and vice versa, women about men. And so everybody's kind of got a bone to pick or is a little bit like, almost like mean, like you're paying for the sins of those before. And I wish we could just be honest and say, hey, here's what's real. Please don't hurt me. Here's how I feel. And you can say with kindness, I'm sorry, I'm not feeling chemistry, but you're a lovely person and I wish you well. And we could just hug it out and be like, hope you're good. Like, I wish we could, but like, don't be mean. Just don't be mean.
But then we're going down. we need to move on. But then I had another part of this where, let's say you don't be mean, and some men and women, they're very upfront, they're very nice about it. But then the other person you didn't be mean to decides to ignore what you have decided to say to them and your boundaries that you decide to put up. And now they're attached to you. So then now you got to turn mean, and you're like, what part of this do you not understand?
And that I blame.
Double-edged sword.
Now, see, porn was what we said earlier. Now, for that, I blame Hollywood and rom-coms and this idea that looking at you, I think you're too young to know this, but there was a movie back in the 80s where the guy holds the boombox outside her window.
Of course, it's say anything.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Okay. So people have this idea of, I will win him or her over. I will wear them down. I mean, even, I can't remember which movie I was watching recently where it's like, 2 weeks notice with Ryan Reynolds and Sandra Bullock. And she's, The Proposal. It's called The Proposal. I'm forgetting her other Sandra Bullock movie. But she's awful to him. She's very attractive, but she's awful to him. And in the end, they end up falling in love. No, that's not. So I think that's what I blame, that people see it as like, I'll get you.
Hollywood.
Like, I'll get you. I'm going to wear you down. I'll get you. Like, you just haven't, I'm not going to give up. And that's what we're taught. And that's what boys are taught with sex, that no means try harder. No means convince her. And I hope that's stopping, but that wasn't what I was when I was a teen. And I think women are almost through the rom-coms taught like, just be more adorable or be more sexual or be more whatever. Like he'll come, be one of the guys, be cool.
Yeah.
Tell him, like, I like porn too. Porn's awesome. And like,
trying to be,
right.
Like, no, it's so many things that really influence our dating culture, our sexuality, like everything about it. And you got to take a step back and realize that's not real life. You got to go outside and touch some grass, a little bit.
I didn't mean this for this podcast, but I'm meaning to do something on it. I saw one of these events was happening in my town, and I'm
Uh-huh.
dying to this fits here. At one of the local breweries, they're having the Pitch a Friend event. Have you heard about these? Where
No, need that in
Okay, so
LA.
it's a singles event, and so what you do is I am friends with Tranisha, and so is somebody else, and the three of us are going to go to this bar, and you're single, and we're going to make a slide deck or a pitch of your best traits, and we're going to get up there, and we're going to be like, all right, single people in the audience, here's my friend Tranisha. She's awesome. Let me tell you why. Let me sell you on her, and you hope somebody in the audience is like, nice. But then you don't have to sell yourself. It's somebody vouching for you who thinks you're great, who can really promise that you're great. And I don't know, it's kind of fun,
No, that is
right?
amazing. After this, I'm gonna have to look this up and see if we have that in LA, or I'm
Yeah,
gonna have to fly to Florida to go see this event.
right?
No, I'm gonna trust you on it. But no, I think that is great because you I guess when people have to talk about themselves and be open and vulnerable, it's hard. It's not easy. But when someone else does it for you, it takes all of that fear out of you. And you're just like, oh my God, like someone has done it for me. And you
Mhm.
feel open and free. And I feel like they'll probably, whoever the person that decides they want to be with this person is going to be like more relaxed because that part of, that was
Right.
done for them. And it doesn't, and you don't have to be tense about it. So I think this is a great
Which
idea.
is what we used to do, where I would say, hey, Tranisha, you got to come to my party. I got this person for you. And I've told them the same thing. I got this girl coming. And that's how my wife and I met. We had a friend
Oh,
who
see, a
kind
friend of
of
a friend.
shipped us together. Exactly. The hinge thing, but they talked each one of us up to the other and kind of pitched, right? That's a little bit of it.
Yeah.
Like you kind of grease the wheels a little. And I think
Yeah.
I get nervous networking. I'm not dating, but when I have to date professionals, I have to meet people. And for years, I would hire or go with a colleague as my wingman or wingwoman. And I'll bring a very attractive woman with me, and she will break the ice, and people want to talk to her. And then they'll be like, have you met
See,
Dr. Giardina? He's this and this and this. And they do the pitch. And now I can just be like, let me talk. But like, I need you to break the ice. I need you to open the door
bring you
for
in.
me. Yeah,
And
just
then
point them this way.
listen, this is great. That's a great idea. You pitched it in. I'm excited. Let me get back to the episode. The task at hand was, I know we need to get practical about this because we've just been talking all about the
Hmm.
things and I want us to give people tools and whatnot. But I have this fun section for us, which it's called Let's Just Be Honest.
Okay.
And I really want your take on this because it is just basically what I did is I looked online and looked at a couple of statements and kind of see what people are actually talking about when it comes to dating and sex and mixed
Mm.
signals online. And I wanted to read these statements out to you and see your thoughts on them if you either agree or disagree or even just like, this downright, that's just weird. And let's just be honest, because I think
Yeah.
some of these what we've actually talked about are we kind of feel the same way. But the
Mhm.
first statement is a lot of people call it chemistry when it's really anxiety.
Ooh. So I disagree,
Uh-huh.
but I give a little speech that trigger warning. So imagine, Tranisha, you're in a bar or at a party, and there's a gentleman or lady, whatever you like, is looking across from you, and they lock eyes, and there's
Mhm.
this vibe, and ooh, this could be my person. Now you're about to leave for the night, and you're walking to your car, and there's that person, and they walk up to you, they press you up against the wall, and you haven't spoken yet, and now your heart is racing, and your stomach drops, and you feel palpitations. Your body can't tell if you're about to be passionately kissed or physically assaulted. It has a
Ah,
similar reaction. And now it's only whether you like the guy or gal or not, whether you're going to like what happens or not. But our bodies go into this very similar thing that maybe is what the writer there is meaning anxiety, but I'm I can't tell if I'm excited or nervous. I can't tell if my heart's racing because I'm dying to talk to you or because I don't think I want to talk to you. And so it's all in how we interpret it up here, but the body is the same.
oh, I see. I got it.
So we have
Well,
to
our
be
next,
careful because a lot of people they call it passion, but really it's just drama. The whole like we fight and then we have makeup sex. Is that passion or are you just like trying to keep your heart rate elevated? And there's been
yeah.
many articles written by smarter people than me about the idea that like you should find somebody who makes your heart not elevated. Like a long-term relationship, you should feel peace. But
If
if
not
you
in,
come in the house and pick a fight with me, our heart rates are elevated and now there's passion, but also I'm kind of mad at you. So is it chemistry or
yeah,
anxiety?
no,
I think that's what it
that's
is.
giving me fear.
Yeah. I don't like that. but some people
Yeah. I
really
like your
do.
take on that now. All right. So our next statement is being desired is not the same as being valued.
Hmm. That all hinges on if we're talking about your body or not. Because if I desire to be around your wit or your brains or your sense of humor or your kindness, then I value it. I want it
Mhm,
because I think it's something hard to find or it's good. But if I
mhm,
just desire your body, yeah, I'm probably not valuing you. I'm objectifying or I'm just lusting,
mhm.
and there's nothing wrong with lust or finding somebody physically attractive, like
Yeah.
yay, but that's how it starts. But
Yeah.
yeah, I think that's the danger there, and that's probably a woman saying that.
Yeah. And it also brings me to I was just recently I used to watch Summer House and see her
Mm,
one of the characters, she's in it and there was like this clip, which is quite sad to see, of how she talks about the men in the house and how she's tired of everyone always wanting to experience her and not really wanting to get to know her.
mm,
And that hit very strongly because you're thinking to yourself that these men are just, they just want to have a piece of you, but
right.
don't want that emotional, intimate part
Yeah.
of you, which is really sad to see.
And what I would say to that though, I don't know I haven't seen that show, but I think it's a struggle with, I don't know if I should say this. It sounds controversial, but let's just go there. Like, I think it's a struggle with what you advertise. Women sometimes with their sexuality, now sometimes a woman is sexualized wearing a nightgown. It doesn't, so sometimes it's not you. But I had one woman I treated years ago, and she was very well endowed in the chest. And she learned to wear sweaters or jackets at work because she wanted to be seen as a smart fellow coworker. But once you saw her cleavage, then even women would get distracted by it. And like,
Mhm.
that's just how I'm built. I didn't even purchase these. They came with the original model. I'm not trying to be out there, but like, I need to like steer you away from that. I've even found, again, not dating, but just getting to know people, that if I am too quick to speak about being a psychologist or a therapist, people like that. But then I wonder, are you wanting
Mhm.
free therapy or do you like Todd? So there's sometimes people want the thing versus you, and you are connected to the thing. So I
Oh,
think we can
I
put other
see.
things out there, and that way you're a
Mhm.
little bit more sure. You know, it's coming to America, right? It's the Prince of
Yeah.
Zamunda, not saying he's the Prince of Zamunda. I want you to like me.
Yes.
So
Mhm.
I think we all have that hope that you will. But then I challenge people: put your best foot forward. If I
Mhm.
am a good talker or you do have lovely breasts, then like, why shouldn't you put all your assets on the table? The danger is just that you got to weed out some of the takers from the
Mhm.
people who like the whole of you, you know?
You're so right. Next statement is you can say yes to sex and still not feel fully aligned in your body.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's true because sometimes sex is a real funny thing. If I'm hungry, I'm going to be hungry until I eat. But even then, right? If suddenly you get bad news, you're like, I'm not hungry anymore. Like, emotions can change our body sometimes. And so,
Mhm.
whereas earlier I felt like we had chemistry on the dance floor, now that we got home, something gave me the ick or something just made me feel off. And now I kind of tensed up, and now the
Oh,
vibe
I
shifted
see.
just like that, which is where so much miscommunication happens. And unfortunately, people feel some remorse and regret the morning after. But I think it can shift. And I think saying I want to have sex sometimes is even I want that closeness or I want to people please, but my body's not there. And that can even have nothing to do with the person. You're
I
very
see.
attractive and you make me feel very safe. But I mean, this is where a lot of women struggle with body image. I don't like the way my vulva looks. I don't like the way my love handles
Mhm.
look. I don't like that I didn't shave. I don't like that I have a dimple here. Like all the things that make me feel uncomfortable in my body that I don't want to experience. I'd like to have sex if I were in somebody else's body so I don't know. I think that's true.
That is true. And last but not least, some people sound emotionally mature until you ask for clarity.
Hmm. Yeah, I think that's mostly true.
Oh,
I
mostly true.
think I think that yes, some people are good talkers, some people are good salespeople, some people are good at saying
Mhm.
the words. There's even unfortunately websites and coaches now to teach people like this is what you're supposed to say, so you're just packaging the right, thing. But then sometimes, and this is now we're probably a woman talking about a man. Sometimes the man feels entrapped. I feel like you're asking for clarity, but if I give you the answer, you're not going to like it. And so, or I feel like it's too early to ask for that. Like you're expecting me to, I've had to educate both genders on that, okay, guy, you can't lead her on. Girl, you can't ask him to lock you down and be totally monogamous after 4 or 6 weeks. You should still be dating people, and so should he. This is too early to shut it down to all other takers. So
Too early. Too early. I like it. Okay, you're too early to shut it down. But you
yeah,
keep it 100.
right. No, I mean, that's real. I think people
That
have
is real.
lost that idea and it's become too polarized. Again, I'm stereotyping with the genders, but like, listen, should you have a roster? I don't like the idea of a roster. Like, I hate that that's
No.
even a term we use. Like,
Yeah.
you shouldn't have a roster. God, if
No.
you want to have one booty call who's like your person, I guess, but like a roster? But then also, why are you hanging everything on this person who you just met? Like, keep
Very
seeing what's
true.
out there. If you're doing job interviews, you should be interviewing at 4 different companies and playing one against the other and waiting to see, like, So,
No, you're
yeah.
100% right. You're 100% right. So, you know what? With that being said, let's get practical with it then, because now we understand the difference between clarity and communication. What I really want to talk about now is what are the green flags to tell someone that you can tell someone is being really honest about the conversation around sex, right? And what are some of the red flags that suggest they're more interested in your access than actual connection? So, let's start with one question. We'll go into the green and red flags, but what does healthy sexual communication actually sound like?
So it's that's a hard one because I don't know that I've seen a lot of that in my office. But what I teach people it could sound like is talking about boundaries and saying, "Hey, I'm game for let's do something except blah blah blah," kind of my no-goes, but otherwise like
Mhm.
let's just vibe it out. But for people who really want to do it right, I do what I call the Cosmo quiz. Now, Cosmopolitan magazine has gone way out of vogue, and it's I don't even know if they make it anymore. But for years, you could pick up any Cosmo off the magazine rack, and there's a section that says 72 things to do in bed or 100 things that turn him on. And what I would do for a long time is I would tell couples, I want you to buy 2 copies of that, one for him, one for her. And you're going to take that list of 72 things to do in the bed. And I want you to circle what you want to try, and you to circle what you want to try, and they'll swap. And it reduces the fear of judgment because I didn't come up with this. Cosmo said it. I'm not some freak show. But then also when you see that you both circled 13, you're like, you would do 13? I've always wanted to do 13. So it's a safer ask, but it's also we're finding consent for something that I didn't know how to ask it. I didn't know how to speak on it. I felt some shame or some embarrassment. But if we both check the same box, then like, okay. So
That's very true.
and then tied to that, I think there should be a talk of STI testing, which I know is very not sexy, but I think that allows both of us to be more open. We should talk about safe sex around pregnancy prevention and what are we going to do around that and what is everybody's comfort level. All these things should happen way before anybody's clothes come off or anybody gets in the mood. So, because they're not sexy, but I think it allows for openness that I think should be happening, but I don't think anybody's doing it. And then lastly, I think and this one's just for fun, but also for comfort, we should talk about what kind of language you like. So not even dirty talk, but I've had couples come to me that the sex was good and and then one of them used a word for a body part or a sex act that just gave me the willies. It just kind of icked me out
Okay. Oh,
because
okay.
I've had women different, it's idiosyncratic. Some women, why would you call that a vagina? Ooh, that's so clinical. Ugh. And then other women would say, why would you call that a pussy? Oh, that's so dirty. So what do you like? But in the moment, we're vibing and things are good. And suddenly one of you says a word and now the other one's like, I didn't really love that. So the sexual vocab lesson is part of the foreplay, but it's also, let's just be clear. I want this to be a good experience for both of us.
Yeah, which makes sense. Which brings me to the next question of how do you know if someone is safe to talk to about sex? Like, yeah.
And that one, it's so hard because it feels so vulnerable and and it's a timing thing too. This is where, guys sending dick pics way too aggressive, too fast. But there's a time that we should talk about what do you like in general. And, it shouldn't be the first interaction, but I think both parties are scared of being sex focused, or, he's just in it for sex, or she's a slut, or whatever term. But then but then I don't want to be seen as the prude, or he's too vanilla. So it's such a dance. It's such a dance. What I would say to that, because I know you want a pragmatic answer, is I like to bring sex into the conversation. So not what are we going to do with each other intimately tonight, but just let's, I don't know, comment on the song that's playing, or talk about how, yeah, my friend had this partner and they did this thing. Like, find a roundabout way to start bringing it there. And so we're both kind of testing. It's like when you're trying to decide if you want to dance, and which I don't think people dance together anymore, but like, I'm kind of shimmying in my seat and drinking my drink and moving my hips. And now it's telegraphing, like, I would like to dance if perchance you would like to dance, but I didn't want to ask, and I don't want to. So, we're kind of easing into it. That's what I would say.
That's what you would say.
But there's a fear because people have histories that you don't know what's bringing to bear. You don't know what landmine or trigger you're going to step on. You don't know what their history is like, and you might represent that. So
you may have to take that risk. Yeah, good luck. Take that risk. Take that risk. Be safe. Really be safe and sorry.
Just be safe. Now we can That's it.
Yeah, just be very safe. So then it brings us into the green. What are the green flags in communication? And give us one green flag. You don't give us too many. And what are the red flags? Because, people just kind of want to know. So they know what to look out for.
I mean, the green flags are people who don't make you feel shame. The people who speak very plainly about sex, intimacy, relationships. People who are direct, but not, like I said earlier, not mean. People who are assertive but not aggressive. People get that wrong. A lot of people felt like they were too passive or too withholding, and now they overcorrect into straight up aggressive, like fist slam on the table, take it or leave it. I don't think it needs to be that way. I think we can talk respectfully. And you know it when you see it, right? That's the green flag, that feeling of where I feel respected and I can walk away and be like, this wasn't for me, but that went well. That was a nice exchange about whatever. Yeah, I think that's the main green flag. Tied to that, though, where we kind of get the ancillary green flag / test of a red flag is, how do they speak about other people? How do they speak about their ex? How do they speak about the wait staff, whether it's male or female? How do they speak about that person over there? How do they speak about like that? So that kind of gives you a warning sign of they're leaning green or red. That's the stereotype, right? Like, I want to see how he treats the waiter or waitress, and that might tell about how they treat people. But yeah, you start looking at that. You start looking at how they speak. And so I've cautioned a lot of men that I talk to that, like, I get that you have stuff with your ex, but if you come in talking about, I'm not fucking getting married again, women are just in it for money, I'm like, not a cute look, bro. Like, even if that's what you believe,
not gonna work.
That's not that's not a good warning shot. You can say it in a different way. You can say it in a more assertive, listen, I don't really want to get into it. It's too early on, but I had a situation with my ex, messy divorce. It didn't feel good. Has me a little gun shy, sorry, nothing about you. And that gives the other party a warning, but it's said in a way that doesn't feel so like off-putting and offensive. That can be a green flag.
Yeah. I like that approach. I'm so happy you tell men that, because some men still come out here in these streets being like, I'm never doing this good. Right. And you'd be like, well, why did you even swipe on the profile, right? Never say never, but then they will purposely swipe on profiles and you see this woman's like, I want to have kids and all this monogamous relationship. And they're like, I don't want any of that. Why did you even enter the chat?
But partly we know why, but then also because men have emotions too, and they just don't know how to show them. And I want to be loved. I want to be treated right. But I'm scared to put that out there, because part of how she hurt me was taking my moments of vulnerability and flinging them in my face and calling me a whiny baby and a pussy. And so, hell, if I'm going to do that again. So it's a fear of getting hurt. It's not just that she took my wallet. She said hurtful things that went below the belt. And now I'm like scared.
He's taking that baggage into the next relationship, like you said.
Right.
Back there.
But people do it in different ways, and either one you can judge, and I'm not judging either. But whether it's women using their bodies or sexuality to try to create intimacy, or men putting their walls up, but really they're saying, I want to be loved for who I am. Like, they're both perhaps dysfunctional in sending the wrong message, but everybody's saying, please love me, please respect me, please tell me I'm good.
They are.
We all just want love.
Everyone wants love. We don't want love. We want peace. We just
And I
want
want
happiness.
safety and I want to know that I'm okay. And yeah.
And that's all we ask. Well, as we get to close this out, I have this one last question for you. It's not my last question, so I'm gonna let you close yourself out as well. But if there is someone who's actually, realized that they've listened to this episode and they realize that they're in their own discomfort and overriding their needs and accepting mixed signals in the name of for connection, what do you want them to remember?
That there are more than one way to get to that goal. And so sex and physical intimacy is a way, but there's other ways that we can create intimacy. And it's shared experiences, it's telling stories and see how the person receives it, it's laughing together, it's going through hardships together. There's all kinds of other things that bond us. And if you step out of romantic relationships and think about, why are you connected to certain people? And some
Oh,
people, it's just time and longevity or genetics and bloodline. But like, why'd you really link up with that one coworker? Y'all have nothing in common, but we both shared an interest in this, or we both handled this thing well, or we went through that storm together, or we did COVID together. So bonds can come from tough times, from fun times, from sexy times. There's lots of ways to get that feeling of intimacy.
oh, so true. Well, I'm super excited that you came on this episode and you were here to host it with me. But before I close out, I just want everyone to remember that I want them, if they took anything away from this episode, and hopefully it resonated with them, is that real conversation does not ruin intimacy, right? So if there's some way that you're feeling like you really want to understand the clarity of your relationship and you feel like sex is the way that you should do it, and that's not it. Hopefully Dr. G is here. If he's always going to be here, even though you're located in Florida. Where else can they find you and how they can connect with you? But yeah.
Yeah. And so, yeah, don't be afraid to have the conversation because listen, it's going to be awkward either way. Whether it's
Mhm.
awkward that you regret having sex or the sex is bad, or it's awkward that we had an uncomfortable conversation, like this just, you have to go through the awkward. Everybody has to do the middle phase that we're all trying to skip over. And there's no way to get around it. But the feeling of relief and connection when you can finally open yourself up to good physical intimacy or emotional intimacy, man, that's worth the gamble. Okay.
It is.
In terms of talking to me, I do work across state lines. Unfortunately, California is still one of the rule outs, which stinks for our purposes here. But if you're in, I think, 44 other states, including Florida, we can do telehealth, or you can come see me in Miami. You can find me on Instagram at Dr. Todd Giardina. As Tranisha said, Therapy Without the Couch is my podcast. You can go check that out. Also, I get no kickback here, but I did want to plug these two sites that I tell everybody to go to for around this theme. There's a website called OMGYes, OMGYES, and you have to pay, but it is one of the best, most explicit but direct but respectful sites I've found, teaching primarily women about their sexuality, but your women-loving partners as well. Step-by-step videos, guides, things
Oh,
that are way more real life than you ever got in health ed class, way more real life than you're ever going to see in porn, not safe for work, but very good for learning about sexuality. And the other one that I've just recently come across, I don't have as much familiar with, is Get Cheeks, CHEEX. This is respectfully made porn that is supposed to be less stereotypic. I have not checked out the videos because, not safe for work. But then they also have an instructional portion as well for self and partner pleasure. And so I do think a lot of what I run into is sometimes people don't know the words to even ask for what they're asking. Sometimes
mm,
people don't even know what they like. I've had people tell me I had one person tell me how they masturbated and they felt like it was weird. And I'm like, that's not how everybody does it, but that's not weird. I've heard that before. So some people just need to, so it starts there. It starts with self-love. It starts with knowing your body and your sexuality. And if you can't say it, then you can't do it. So first, know what you like. Second, know what it's called. And third, tell your partner.
I love it. We're going to leave it like that. That's it. Thank you once again, Dr. G, for being on Cringe and Crumble. Like I said,
Thanks for having me.
you're definitely so welcome. And if it's resonated with anyone, go on ahead and share it and do whatever. But thanks again. Laugh at the cringe and always learn from the crumble. Laugh at the cringe, learn from the crumble. This is Cringe and Crumble. Until next time.